Interchange Exchange. Great to have your company. This is the People's Podcast where we get to answer your questions and talk all things footy that you want to talk about right here on the Footy Interchange Exchange. Adam Papalia with you alongside Will Schofield. Scoey, as always, we give first preference to our Patreon fans and people that have signed up to Patreon to ask the first questions.
Yes, let's go over to you. Patrons, Dino asks, is it likely the Dogs land both or either of Reilly and Butters? Oh, I'd probably aren't the Cats sniffing around for both of those guys?
I think there was a bit of chat around that Reilly had a chat maybe, or was impressed with Luke Beveridge.
Okay.
I'd be surprised that players are talking to coaches, would they?
Yeah, we know that happened. Sam Mitchell, Adam Simpson's spoken about it this year in terms of that. I mean, either of those to the Dogs. I mean, Treloar feels like he's getting a little bit he's injuries to start this year. He's not going to play forever. Bontempelli's got quite a few more years in him, but it is a pretty stacked midfield. Liberatore's another senior player in there, and Ed Richards, you don't want to take time away from him. So
and Kennedy's been great this year too.
If you're talking about midfields to walk into, I don't think either of those are needed at the Bulldogs, to be honest.
Certainly not both, I wouldn't have thought.
No.
They probably, even though Rory Lobb's done a great job this year and O'Donnell's been pretty good too, maybe another defender might help.
It probably wouldn't be a week without, in Western Australian footy, if we didn't speak about the duo combo in the ruck at Fremantle. Tom asks on Patreon, do you think Freo was silly to sign Darcy for another 6 years, 1 year after they had recruited Jackson? Two genuine rucks never seems to work that well. I'll answer this. I watched that ruck battle against North Melbourne really closely, and they absolutely worked over Tristan Xerri, who I have just behind Max Gawn as the best ruck in the comp. So if you're looking at a ruck combination that works well, they beat up on Xerri. Now, does that take away from other elements? Luke Jackson kicked the winning goal as a forward with Sean Darcy in the ruck. I mean, that's another positive. If you can start getting more goals out of Luke Jackson, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Over the last 3 weeks with Sean Darcy in the side, I've liked it. So I've always been a pretty big fan of it, to be honest. So to answer your question, no.
And I'm the same. The stats in terms of their win-loss record with both of them in the team is much better than when only one of them plays.
Well, there you go.
So it's the thing that they've been trying to wrestle with. And when you see Luke Jackson play as a sole ruck, he is a much more impactful player than what he is when Sean Darcy's in the team. But is the team better overall when they both play? I think it is. So if they can both fit within that side themselves and are happy to play that role themselves within the team and it works and they win, then that's a tick all around.
All right, more questions over to you, mate.
This one coming through from Mr. Snrub says, trying to understand, it's a very funny name, trying to understand why the Eagles re-signed Tim Kelly now instead of waiting to the end of the year. Also, why 2 years instead of one. The Pies are making their genuine superstars wait until the season is done. He's certainly not having an impact. I know he's been playing a different role in recent weeks, but he's just not getting enough of the footy right now, is he? Or impacting the game enough, Tim Kelly?
No. I don't know the answer to the question. I guess the only thing that I like to deflect on is we don't really know what he signed for. So he could have signed for absolutely nothing. And he's on matches now. Who knows?
Yeah. But why sign? I guess more the not.
Well, that would be why.
But why now?
That's why.
Why not wait?
If it was a really cheap deal,
right?
And maybe West Coast think they've won out of the deal, rather than trying to look after Tim Kelly. Maybe West Coast think, well, this is cheap as chips, and we may as well just sign him on a really cheap deal, and we have a senior player around the group. I don't know. Hard to know without knowing what the contract details are, and you could probably learn a bit by looking at how Collingwood does things across numerous things, including their list management, given their senior players and their performance.
Ed says, read the Bulldogs. Will Jamara returning be good or bad for them with Sam, Darcy, Aaron Norton, West all going great as a three-pronged attack?
I just reckon.
Will he get in the way, says Ed?
I just think... that those three players are all elite. I don't think you'd be turning any of them down. And Tim English in the ruck, that's suddenly a very, very potent combo. And the dominance that Western Bulldogs are now having in entries as well as midfield dominance, like I can only see it as positive. I don't know how you see it.
And there's no guarantee that they're all going to be fit through the rest of the year either. So the more players you've got up, fit, ready to go, putting pressure on list spots, the better your team is. And if one goes down with injury, then you've got the luxury of, if you're not going to play them all at the same time, the next person just comes straight in. Sam Darcy looks scary as a prospect. Yeah. Over the next decade, if he keeps on this trajectory, it's going to be quite insane.
I haven't given him enough respect, which is like one of the best players in the league. Respect. I haven't sort of seen it as that, but just watching him now this year, wow.
He's going to dominate some games of footy.
Yes.
Ian says, how much training do accredited media have to complete to get their formal AFL accreditation?
None. I don't know.
Yeah, none. No, not everybody gets one, though. So that's the thing. So you need to be attached to an organisation, and then you get that accreditation based on the organisation you work for. So it's up to the organisation whether they hire you or not. And if you're a rights holder or a non-rights holder, it depends on if you get that accreditation or not.
And how do the organisation, like how do they get picked?
Just
like, can BackChat apply for AFL accreditation?
Yeah, absolutely, you could. Absolutely could.
Maybe we will.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised you haven't, Scully.
Maybe we will then, Paps. I feel like there'd be way more red tape if we were accredited.
Yeah, well, but that's the other part to it, I guess.
There's certain rules and regulations you got to follow if you're one of them. Or?
Yeah, there are. I think the AFL's pretty open to people wanting to cover the game, but generally need to be attached to an organisation. If you're starting up as an organisation, you need to have proof of how many people are watching and listening and doing all that sort of thing. But if you're an AFL rights holder, like or a media partner, like the TV broadcasters are, like the radio broadcasters are, like some of the newspapers are in terms of a partner, even if there's no sort of formal agreement there, then no, there's no training particularly, but the organisations do their due diligence in terms of who they want to hire. So there's no formal training. If you've played the game before and you get on as an expert comment, then you're judged on your performance as a media performer. If you're coming through as a journalist or a commentator, you generally just have to prove that you can do the job first, and you generally have some training on the way through. So yeah, there's nothing formal like that, Ian. I hope that answers your question. Antonio, I'm not going to read this out fully, but says, why do some umpires hate Freo, and what are their free kick counts in Freo games?
I have no idea. I don't think that's true. Is that better? Is that a better reflection? I don't think that's true. I don't know the numbers.
Yeah, and I don't like naming specific umpires, and we've had this discussion on radio before, Scully, about certain umpires playing certain free kicks against certain teams. I think they pay the free kicks that are there. They're not biased towards one team or another. It's the situation you're in. It's the free kick that's given away. Try not to read too much into it, Antonio, in terms of the individual people, I don't think.
Yeah.
There's no umpire that has favoured another team over another.
So then don't speak about a certain player's form against a certain side. Because they're just, I use a forward as an example. If Josh Kennedy from West Coast,
no, that's different.
Only misses, his set shot accuracy is 50% against Geelong, and every other side is at 90%. You're not allowed to talk about the 50% with that ruling, with what you just said there.
With accuracy, yeah, but in terms of how many goals he kicks against Geelong, that would be different because his matchup would be different.
Yeah, but his accuracy, so he's missing a lot of set shots against Geelong.
Yep.
So we can't speak about that. Can't name Josh Kennedy and say that.
I don't think that would be a relevant stat.
Why not?
Because it wouldn't.
If the rest of his games were 90% and he was 50% against Geelong, that would be spoken about.
Speculating about how many are paid to one way, but I think I don't know. I'm not being naive here. I don't think either that the umpires do the job to the best of their ability. They do not have a bias against a team at all.
I agree.
Thank you.
That's a different argument to whether you should speak about names of umpires.
No, but I think that was what the question was sort of getting at.
Correct.
Was along there being a bias, particularly from one umpire to one team.
Okay.
And I just 100% don't agree that ever happens. They just go out there and umpire the situation that is in front of them. And it doesn't matter which team is there. Chris says, should Freo chase Nazaya Wanganeen-Millera? But I doubt they can match his contract.
No, don't waste your time or money. He's not coming to Western Australia. You can't just... All this coverage around contracts and players coming out and everyone's available. You can't just get anyone you like. Slap money down. And Freo don't have the money and they don't have the need.
Yep.
Is that
answers it
precise
straight away.
enough.
Yep, Chris says, Life by Noxie says, what's your favourite game that you have called, been involved in?
Well, you'll be better at this than I am. The last game of the year last year was pretty good.
Yeah, Freo Port.
Where Freo had to win by a certain amount to make finals.
Yep.
Was that it?
It was. Yeah. They had to win. Port were already in the 8 and didn't need to win, and Freo
Port won.
didn't get it done, but Port won, late, and you had the Carlton fans sweating on it because they got rolled by St Kilda won just before that type of thing. So that was certainly a good one. For me, like games, I just want it to be close at the end. When you think of close grand finals across the years that have been brilliant to be at and be part of, or big upsets in a grand final. I wasn't calling it that day, but 2008 with Hawthorn getting up. 2018 with West Coast, that was like one of the great grand finals in the atmosphere and how close it was throughout the whole day.
Did you call that?
Yep, did that one for 6PR. So it was, Carl Langdon called the game over, obviously, early on, about 10 minutes into it, and then
did he?
Sort of slowly crept back. But for me, like calling, you just want it to be close. And if the game's on the line, like it was on the weekend with Freo North, like when there's a kick in it with a couple of minutes to go and you can sort of get up into 4th, 5th gear, that's when it's good fun to be calling games of footy. I'll have a bit more of a think about that in terms of over the journey. And the last one coming in from Brad says, we're talking about the draw and the league and how it works and how it's fair with equalisation. Brad says, more teams in the league, if we have more teams in the league, talking about a third licence here in WA, the draw is always compromised, but you could play every day of the week if you needed to, and make sure that everyone plays each other home and away. Unless you do that, the competition is unfair. But would it be better if 14 teams and bigger squads, and then you also get your derbies and your showdowns, etc.?
So there's two things here. Do we play 36 rounds?
Yep.
Or 34 rounds?
Yep, and double up.
Games each. Or do we reduce the teams to 14 and play everyone once? Is that what? Neither of those will happen.
No.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
We're not going to get to a stage where there's 34 games.
No.
Unless they significantly reduce the time of games, to 15-minute quarters. Mm-hmm. And they won't reduce sides by 4. Like there's already 19th coming in. There'll be a 20th probably in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So they're not going to reduce it by 6 either.
Yeah. I think the only way is if we have more teams and then everyone plays each other once and then you maybe have one.
I like the play everyone once and then the reset with the 666.
Yep.
But that's cooked when the 19th team comes back in.
Yeah.
But I like the play everyone once, 17 games. After round 17, you then have a redraw. And, 1 through 6 are playing for top 6 spots. 1 through 7 through 13 are playing to get into finals. And then the bottom ones are playing for draft picks or something. They get a bonus structure set up where if they actually do well in the last 6 weeks, they can buy their way back into the draft somehow. You don't want to encourage losing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I really like that.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I also like the wild card talk of having that in.
So like 9th and 10th? Oh, 7, 8, 9, 10th?
Yep, and playing that bye weekend before the finals.
The reason I don't like that is too many teams getting a chance to play finals.
Get a chance
you need to reward being a good side for the entire season.
Well, there's a fair gap on the ladder already appearing this year. So might just keep a few of those other teams going a little bit longer through there. The one thing I really would like to see when it comes to the draw, and it's never going to be fair because we've got teams based in one place and we can't play each other twice, is at least have each other play each other once before we have any double ups. Yeah. So at the moment, we've got teams playing against each other for the second time.
Carlton.
When other teams haven't played against each other yet. I think that would make the ladder a more true reflection of what it should be to that point, and whether that's how you work out your minor premier is based off everybody playing each other once and you get an extra, there's a prize or something for that. You get the trophy once that's done, and then you play the double ups and all the rest from there. But I'd just like to see every team play each other in the first lot, and then we have all the double ups.
I can't understand why that doesn't happen. I don't. Nothing can be told to me that explains that.
No, I guess.
Why would that not happen?
There's a full matrix of reasons why they
Don't bring
want
the
to do
Matrix
that. And
into it. Keanu Reeves is busy enough.
Teams they
mate.
want to have playing on a Friday night and a Thursday night and trying to maximise all of those things and maximise crowds and ground availability and moving things around. So that's why. But in an ideal world, that's what we would do. Get the questions, continue on Patreon. You can send them through to Scully and myself. Finger working with you,
On
mate.
socials, mate, you can send them through on Twitter. You can put them in the comments in YouTube. You can comment on socials. You can sign up as a patron, and that will guarantee your questions get asked and answered here on the Footy Interchange Exchange.
Nicely done. The People's Podcast, the Footy Interchange Exchange.